Hello again, FlossTube. It's Cowgirl Kate. I guess this is now part 2 because part 1 kind of got cut off. So, welcome to technical difficulties. It's kind of the story of my life. What can I say? To continue on with the stitching tag, I have a couple more. Hopefully I can cram them into one more video. This one is the General Stitching Tag by Joe and Molly. Hi girls. Nice to see you if you're out there. And the first question is, how often do I get to stitch on the average? Well, I'm more of a seasonal stitcher. Winter is kind of our downtime on the farm. Spring, summer, fall, you know, it's all nuts getting ready for winter just because of the area that we live in. So not a lot of stitching happens during those seasons typically, but I'm hoping to change that. So I guess the average that I would get during the winter is probably 2 hours a day, and you know, that's my goal is to increase that, but usually it's about 2. The longest session that I've ever spent cross stitching, or needlework in general, but typically cross stitch, I want to say about 6 hours, and a lot of that was like in a car. So yeah, I mean, you're kind of stuck in there, and you just, yeah. I just went to town and went great guns on a project just to have something to do. So probably about 6 hours. The next question is favorite needle minders. This is kind of funny. I have only one answer because this is the only one that I have, so it's just that one. I used to have another one like the same kind of style, but it had a flower on it, and I gave that to one of my stitchy friends. So the beehive is the only one that I have left, and hopefully I'll, you know, find a few more that kind of catch my eye and add to the collection, because that is a fun little thing. I like them. The next question. What does the way you stitch say about yourself? Your method, your taste in project, and the number of projects that you have. Well, I'm predisposed to not leave a pattern alone. So none of my projects have ever turned out as they were originally charted. So I guess customization. There's a good word for it. Customization. The method that I use is I usually cross each stitch as I go, so it's kind of a final thing to it. My taste in projects, I like, for the most part, big projects, complicated projects, but I'm getting more into the littler and the simpler projects as well. But you know, usually I like the big stuff and I like the complicated stuff. So I like to be challenged. The numbers of projects, I have a lot of numbers of projects. But you know what? It's kind of, I tend to bite off more than I can chew, but it's better to go back for seconds and have leftovers rather than be starving. So we'll call it good with that. The easiest type of pattern or theme to stitch. For me, I want to say probably a design that has big blocks of color, but yet has enough detail to keep me interested. So, you know, the Mirabilias are really good at that. You get a lot of detail, but it's still nice big blocks of color. But I've noticed more, there's some Quaker things, some more primitive kinds of styles. I mean, they would be easy to stitch. I have some of those. I have a couple of Quaker projects started. I mean, they're very easy and simple to stitch because it's just one or two colors and you just follow the symbol along and the colors of your thread kind of does all the changing for you. So, I mean, those are kind of easy and fun to do. The next question. Your challenge for 2016. Mine is going to be stitch more. I really need to get on the ball with that. I need to have more time to it. And I've kind of decided that even if it's costing me sleep, I'm still going to try to get something done on a project every day if I can. Or if I can't necessarily because it's a busy, swampy kind of week, at least try to make up for it on my days off. Like where I call it a day off, but it's pretty much a day that I would have that's quieter than most. So, and then the last question, what is or was the best cross-stitch product you were enabled to get? And not like patterns or, you know, a designer or so forth, but an actual cross-stitch equipment. So for that one I would have to say Q-snaps. I can't remember when exactly I first started them. It was probably back when they first came out, and you know, a lot of people were talking about them on the message boards, and I decided to try it, and oh, they are my favorite. They'll probably always be my favorite. And they're easy to make. You just chop up some PVC and, you know, slap it together and get the clamps that you need for it. So that's probably my number one best product that I've ever been enabled to buy. So that was the Molly and Joe General Stitchy tag. So yeah, it'll be kind of fun to see what other people's answers to that one will be. It's always fun to learn a little bit more about other people's methods and so forth. The next one I'm going to do is Sonja's Joy of Stitching tag. So question 1, how did I learn to stitch? Well, that was back when I was pregnant with my first child, and I was 21. I mentioned this in my other video. I could no longer paint because of the chemicals in paints, and sitting around not doing anything was going to drive me crazy because, you know, you already had the hormones from the pregnancy. I didn't need to lump boredom on top of it. So I got a kit and I taught myself with the instructions that were in that. So that's kind of where I took off. The next question, have you taught anyone else how to stitch? I've taught my 2 boys how when they were younger, and they know how. They, you know, kind of moved away from it now that they're teenagers and, you know, gotta be cool and, you know, the gaming, that sort of thing. But, you know, they still have their things and, you know, they still take them out and look at them, but, you know, it's really not as important or whatever, and that's fine. You know, at least they know how to do it, so they can sew a button on, and, you know, if they had to, they at least have that much in their life skills to have. Do I watch TV, music, or what do I prefer to have? Do I need it to be quiet while I'm stitching? I'm not real crazy about TV. I like movies, especially favorite movies that I've, you know, seen 100 times, so all I have to do is just listen along. I love listening to music, or books on tape, you know, that sort of thing. That's all a nice, just kind of background stuff. But you know, really, you know, if the family's watching TV, I'm more kind of in my own little world doing my project and not really paying attention to the TV, and they probably get irritated when I say, hey, what just happened, or what was that about, why is he this way, you know, that sort of thing, because you should have been paying attention but you're doing something else. So they probably get disgusted with me sometimes. And quiet is good too, you know, because oftentimes, you know, late at night it's quiet, and that's nice too. So, you know, I'll take whatever. I just, what's most important is just having the time to do it. The next question, what kit companies do I consider to be the best? Now, I haven't bought very many kits over the years. Way back when I first started, I bought a whole bunch of them, and they were mostly Dimensions Gold, and I bought a lot of them secondhand too, you know, just as they'd come up for sale on the message boards. So I do like the Dimensions Gold. I'm not sure if now they do more of the sorting out the floss, or if back then they didn't, but it had like a yarn or something to help you figure out what bundle went with what. What I liked about them was the threads were nice in the Dimension Gold kits. Now, I haven't bought any in probably 10 years, so I don't know how they do now or whatever, but you know, the ones that I have I found were very nice. The kits that I had started back then, I did use the fabric that came with them. Normally that was like an 18 count Aida, and I don't care for Aida. It just feels so scratchy on my hands that I don't care for it myself. So I swap it out. I just get a different piece of fabric and, you know, stitch the design and use the materials out of the kit for it. Another kit company that I do like is Maya. And that's spelled M-A-I-A. Yeah. And I only have a couple of their kits. They're geisha, which I like to collect them. But the kits are very nice. They're very nice kits. They're a little more expensive than the Dimensions Gold, but they're very nice. But there again, they come with the Aida, which I wind up switching out anyway to something I feel more comfortable working with. But they were very nice kits. And I got a couple of those maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I haven't bought any kits ever since, so I've just been kind of kitting up charts since then. Your favorite designs is another question. And I think pretty much, you know, I've said that before. I like big ones, complicated ones, chatelaines, mirabilias, Hades. For me, it's more subject material rather than the designer, because I like, you know, I have a project that's a vampire, but yet I'll have a project over here that's, you know, something a lot more contemporary, like, or maybe simplistic, like a Quaker, you know, something very traditional. And then, you know, you have this vampire, and then you have a Celtic lady and a mermaid. You know, it's all over the place. So if the image that it's supposed to be is going to be beautiful, that's what I gravitate towards. So, yeah. Another question is ideas or inspiration for projects. Where do I, you know, kind of get that? FlossTube is a great resource. Facebook groups are a great resource. I mean, there's so many ways to interpret a design, you know, with how people are either doing the fabrics or changing the colors or, you know, whatever. You know, there's inspiration everywhere. And sometimes, you know, projects that I never even knew about or, you know, paid attention to, you know, somebody else will make it up and it'll be amazing, and it's like, oh, yeah, now you got me. So, you know, there's inspiration that can be found anywhere. The next question is, do I store or keep the charts, or give them away or whatever? I typically keep them, and that's just because I don't have a lot of finishes, but a lot of times projects that I finished, I might wind up doing that same project over in a different colorway. I mean, the Celtics are a great example of that. Some of the Mirabilia mermaids I've done with that, so I tend to hang on to them. I'll find a use for them again. Next question. Do I gift or keep things away? Gift things or keep them as I'm finished. And I typically keep some of the more projects that take me longer, just because. And then I have special projects that I will only start with the intention that they're going to be given away. So it's more, this project started out as a gift, that's what it's going to become, that's what it'll be. So it's kind of half and half. And if I'm working on a gift, it kind of takes over priority versus the ones that I'm, working on for the house, for here, my family or myself. So it just varies, but usually I'm not one to start out with, oh, I'm going to work on this, but I don't really want it, so I'm going to give it away. No, they usually start out with their intended purpose as what they'll be. Next question. Do I ever take my stuff traveling, and how? Well, I should probably have gotten the bag over here, but I like to use computer bags, like the old laptop bags that were around maybe 7-8 years ago. I mean, they almost look like a briefcase, but they were, more like a luggage than the little skinny cases that you get for laptops now. They hold a lot of stuff. You can put several Q-snaps in there. They got plenty of room for the charts, scissors. I have a little zipper bag for all the tools and stuff, so I take it everywhere. I don't carry a purse, but I carry that thing, and it just stays in the car or whatever, and just in case. The next question: what do I enjoy most about stitching? Well, you guys are probably going to say, oh, she's going to say time again. Well, I am going to say time again, because it's like a little vacation. It's a mini vacation to be able to sit down and make something pretty that, whatever. And if it's a present, this is going to sound really sappy, but if it's a present that somebody either gave me the chart or the kit or whatever, then as I'm working on it, I'm thinking about that person and kind of tuck in a little happy thought for them with every stitch. So it's just kind of